Hi there, this is Pranav from DPS Diary. Good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on the geographic location. I hope you are doing great. Today we are going to talk about logins, users, alias, okay, and we'll see the permission. So this is one of the topic that was there part of my session. So let us talk about it. So before that, thank you for tuning in and going through my videos and passing your feedback. So I really appreciate that. So let us start the topic. So here let's talk about the level of the like what is the level that you create. So when you create a login, right, so it's at the instance level or at the server level, right? When you talk about user, so that is at the database level, right? Then we talk about the group. So groups are actually deprecated now, but it was used before and it is again a database level, right? Then you have roles. So roles are basically at the server level, okay? So this is created at the master database, but you can access them at any database without having to add them into specific database, right? So what we'll do, I have prepared the set of command which we will execute in the lab to understand how it actually works and how the level works. How the level means what is their layer. If they're in the user database, then they're at the master database. So how do we add them into individual database and what all things they can do even without adding them as a user, without adding them or without granting them any permission, right? So we'll go through all of that. So let us start. In case of any question, feel free to ask me through comment, or you can drop me an email, or anything is fine. Okay. So let me start recording. Okay, so I have my lab, as you know, this task manager. Okay, so I've started the recording now. So let me open the lab here. Okay. So now here what we'll do is first we'll check whether the environment variables are set properly or no, right? So here you can see I have one server which is ASE1 currently running in my environment. This is lab, right? So now what we'll do is we'll log into this server. Okay. So by default, when you log in and you will check database, it will be in the master database. Okay. So I have opened two sessions. So what we'll do in the one session, we will log in with SA and we'll grant and revoke and do all that thing. And in the other session, we'll see how the impact of that is actually happening on the backend, right? Okay, so now let us start with the login. So login, as I told before, this is at the server level or at the instance level. So once you create the login, then only you can access any server. Without having login, you cannot create a user or you can't do anything. You can't even log into server to check anything in the server, right? So this is the first thing that you need to have. Then it comes about the roles, system defined role, user defined roles. Then we talk about the user, which is again a database level. So this is the command that what I'm doing is I'm running this command, which is sp_add login to create a login at this particular server, which is ASE1, right? So what we'll do, we'll run this command. Okay. So what is the problem here? Unquoted closed quote. I think it's not liking the way it is there. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so you can see it works. So there was no difference in that, but for some reason it did not take the quote as it should have been. Okay, so now you can see the login is created. So password correctly set. Okay, account unlocked and new login is created. So when the new login is created, that means it should be there in which table. You can find that out. So that will be in the sys logins table, right? So now if you want to check, select star from master dot sys logins, right? So you will see that you have one login here. Okay, so let me show you how it actually is. So master, so SA is the first, having SUID 1, then 2 is the probe, then test login, okay, and this is what we have created just now, test underscore login. Okay, there is another login which will drop. Okay, so test login is what is just now created. Okay, so you see the maximum, or let's do one thing, select star from master dot sys logins. Okay, order by SUID descending. So this will actually give you the one which is just now created, which is test underscore login. Okay, now after this login is created, you can log into the server without having to do anything. Let us see that. So before doing that, let's check whether we have the variable set or no, environment variable. Now ISQL minus s ASC1 minus u test underscore login. We can use password here only, test underscore login, and window size or width size. So you can see we are able to log in. Now as I mentioned before, by default it will be in the master database. Okay, so far so clear, there is no doubt or any concern until now. So before moving forward, we can drop some logins, or sp underscore drop login we can use, just to avoid any, because we are going to use them. Okay, so it is having alias and all. Okay, so we'll create new login, that's fine, we'll not drop them right now. Okay, so now this is the command that we use, sp underscore add login is actually deprecated. It is not supported in the new version. Okay, still it runs until 16, but as per the SAP documentation, as per the Savage documentation, it is deprecated. Okay, so we should be using the new command, which is nothing but create login. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. So what we'll do is, instead of new method, we'll say new process. Okay, so that we will do all that, new underscore process. Now you will ask me, what is the default database user DB? So as per the best practice, when you create a login, you should ensure that the default database is not master, rather a database which is having log backup scheduled already, so that even if that person or even if that system does many operations or does many transaction without really committing or leaving it open, that will not cause any problem in the master database, because master database, if that has any problem, whole system will have impact and it will be like not accessible. So what we should ideally do is, we should assign one specific database and we should add that as a user in that particular database, right? So that we will not have any problem. This we have already encountered for some of our client, wherein it was created by default, which is master database, and then the system went down because it was that login was for some monitoring tool, and that was having some open transaction, or the transaction which was having really huge in size, right? So that is why when we create, we should assign one default database. Now this is something, let me just do one thing, because I have changed the name. So let us replace this. So new underscore method and new underscore process, if there is anywhere. Yes, okay, done. Okay, so now what we'll do is, we'll create this login. Okay, now let us go back to here and let us create this. So we should be in the master database. So let us see, create login, new process with password, new process, and default database will be user DB, right? So let us create this and see it is created. Okay, now the thing is, you can ask me, when we had this SUID, right? So we had the max SUID, which was 7. So by default, it will be, when you do not specify SUID, it will be incremental. So this particular one, so you can do sp underscore display login. Okay, and you can do new underscore process. This is another way to check details about the login. So you will see that SUID is 8 here. Okay, login name is new process, default database is user DB. I can also show you the previous one which we created, right? Test underscore login, and then you will see the default database was master. Okay, so by default you will go to master database, but then you should actually assign one default database which is not master or not system databases. You can have tempdb because there is no problem in that, but still it's preferred you should assign one user database which is getting logged backup, or the logs are backed up. Okay, so will not have any problem, or it should be periodic backup, right? Okay, so this was the new method of creating login, and this is what we should stick to. Now the good thing about this method is you can do override of SUID. Now this is actually very helpful when we do synchronization of login between two servers or multiple servers. So this is very helpful when you are dealing in the replication server, right? You have ARM standby or you have master database which is under replication. So then in that case SUID should actually match from source to target. Okay, so in that case, suppose for some reason one SUID which is missed in between. Okay, so then how do we really create it? Okay, or something which is there which is it's not in the incremental, so 1 2 3 4 5, then it is directly 8 or 9. So if you go by default method, then it will go for 6 and then it will go for 7. So then these all skip you cannot do when you are using a default method or create login. But here you have one option wherein you can do this override and you can specify specific SUID. Now before that, so when we created this new login, new process, default database what we have given is userdb. So now you can ask me, so it should work, right? It should work. So let us see. Now we have logged in with test login, right? So now let's exit from here and do the previous command, isql -s aac1 -u new underscore process -w, and let's pass the password as well, new underscore process, right? See, you are able to log in, but then you cannot open database userdb. Why? Because we have added this user, this login as a user, or by mentioning that it's a default database, we should give permission, right? If you don't give permission, permission means the user or the login on its own without granting any role, it will not have any permission to any user database. Okay, by default we will go to master database if you don't do that. So since it does not have permission to userdb, so if you check the login name, db name here, it should be master. Okay, so now what we will do is we will go to userdb, okay, and we will add this as a user. So sp underscore add user new underscore process, okay, and let us add, so it's a login name and as a user, so it is added. So now if you exit and then if you log in now, okay, it was able to log in, and now if you check the db name, it should be userdb. Okay, so okay, so it is not dropped because it still has privilege granted to is use the with override option to drop it. Otherwise what we have to do is we have to revoke the permission from this role. So let us do that, use userdb. Okay, so sp underscore help protect. Before dropping, let's find out what all things it has. Okay, so it is having permission on test underscore dl table. So what we will do, revoke select on test underscore dl from test underscore, let's copy that. Okay, I'm running the command, writing the command and running it. It should not be done because we don't remember all the command. sp underscore help protect, doing that. So it doesn't have any permission now. Okay, so use master and see if we can drop the role, drop role. Okay, let us see. Okay, we are able to drop it. Okay, so then there is one more login, I think sp underscore new underscore process. Let's try to drop that as well. Drop login new underscore process. Okay, so it is dropped. Did we create anything else? Okay, so I think we are pretty much done with the login, user, alias, group also we covered, and the roles, and how do we actually deal with the permission. So I showed you. So I will have all these commands and will we'll save it as PDF, or we'll save it as something which you can use, and then I can share with you guys. Okay, so do let me know in case of any question, and I hope this would have helped. This would have been helpful in understanding login, roles, users, groups as well, and permission. How do we really do that? So here we talked about user defined role, system defined role. I did not go into that, but Alias, I showed you how it actually works. Okay, so that should be all, I think. So thank you for your time, and really appreciate your willingness to see the things. Okay, so thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay, thank you.